Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? This is your boy Isaac.
And this is your boy Bryce.
And we are brothers on tennis. And guess what, folks? We've got a special guest today. Woo! Muy caliente, folks. I'm trying to tell you. I am so very excited to talk to this young lady. It has been, we have watched her career, both myself and Bryce. And this young lady, not only on the court, but off the court, has done some really outstanding things. And I'm just sitting here just shaking because I'm so ready to talk with her and find out what's going on. Bryce, tell me, how you feeling, bro? How you feeling about our special guest?
Now, you know I'm excited.
Right?
Because this is a home girl for me. Louisiana. This is a home girl for me. So
okay, can I talk? Y'all just gonna make me blush here and get in it all.
Yes.
Well, Chanda, I have got to let our listeners know a little bit about what you've done, because everybody may not be up to speed on what you have done in your career. So real quickly, Chanda in her playing days, she reached a singles high of number 6 and won 7 singles titles. In the majors, she made the 4th round of every Grand Slam title tournament, and in 1996, she made it to the semifinals of the Australian Open. She wasn't just a singles player. As for doubles, she won 10 titles, and one of those titles was the Australian Open title. So she has a major title to her belt, where she and Arantxa Sanchez Vicario beat 2 of her, let's say, commentator peers, Lindsay Davenport and Mary Jo Fernandez.
Right.
But one of the things that I really want to call out, because when you talk about people being players and you want to know how they kind of match up with other players, I want to name very quickly 10 players that Chanda, in her career gave the beat down to.
You can go and speak on it, please.
Gabriela Sabatini, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, Lindsay Davenport, Justine Enna, Emily Mauresmo, Martina Hingis, Lori McNeil, Jennifer Capriati, and both Venus and Serena Williams.
Wow.
So, with that being said, we welcome Chanda Rubin to Brothers on Tennis. How you doing, Chanda?
I don't even know what to say after that. I'm just stay quiet. I'm gonna let you just keep talking, because I'm like, wow, I did that. Is that who I play? I remember some of them, but not all. But I do have to say, so Venus and Serena, I beat them in doubles. They, of course, beat me as well with different partners. Beat them in doubles. I've beaten Serena in singles. I never got the win against Venus in singles. Those are the ones I think that stick with you a little bit more, when you don't sort of get the goods on another player more than probably the wins. But she was tough. She was tough and still is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I believe it.
Absolutely. Wow. Chanda, that record in itself is just ridiculous. To play all, and folks, this is what you have to understand. Chanda played all those folks. So she is of that caliber, if not above. And I am just so very excited to just hear more about how you came into this wonderful game of tennis, how you jumped on the pro tour, and how that whole progression happened. So let's just go ahead and jump in, Chanda. Talk to us about just kind of how your story. How did you get into this game of tennis?
I think, like a lot of kids, players, they pick up the sport because someone they knew, either someone in their family or a close friend, or, someone in their circle loved the game, knew the game, and introduced them to it. And for me, it was the same. My parents introduced me to the game. They got married after college. My dad was a lawyer, eventually became a judge. My mom was a teacher, but they picked the sport up after college because of friends and just loved it. They would play tournaments on the weekends. They would practice and try to play early in the mornings before work, and of course in the weekends with friends. And they ended up building a house when I was about 2 years old, building a house. And back then you kind of self-contracted, when you didn't have a lot of money, getting your materials, putting everything together, finding the people to kind of help do the different jobs you needed done. And through all of that, in all of that, my dad wanted and decided with my mom to build a tennis court in our backyard. So I had a tennis court growing up in my backyard, all of my life. And they are still, my parents are still in that same house. I actually went out there yesterday and hit a few balls.
Oh, wow.
That is awesome.
Crazy. But that's what I grew up with. So on the weekends, they'd be out there early in the morning. I was a late sleeper. I was kind of a sleepyhead. I'd wake up, nobody would be in the house, and I'd be scared for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it would click, oh, they're probably out on the tennis court. And everything would just be like, okay, that's normal, that's natural. And it just went from there. So I just grew up with it, and it was a family thing.
So everybody in your family plays?
Yes, I have an older sister, and I had a younger brother as well. He passed a few years ago, but everybody played. My brother and my sister both played in college, got scholarships to play. So my sister at Southern University in Baton Rouge, my brother at LSU in Baton Rouge as well. And so, yeah, it was a family affair.
Well, I can't let you go any further without letting our listeners know. Chanda and I, not only are we both from the state of Louisiana, I'm from Shreveport and she's from Lafayette, but we both have very strong connections to Southern University. That's where I graduated from. I played on the tennis team there. Both of my parents graduated from Southern University. Our producer Chet, both of his parents graduated from Southern University. So there's a whole lot of SU love here.
No, because I'm Grambling State.
I'm gonna warn anybody, don't say nothing bad about Southern, okay? Just don't even think about it. That's the company you're in right now.
I love it.
Oh, Chanda, you're killing me here because I'm Grambling State all the way. So that's our rival right there. Come on, man.
We're gonna give you a little love. We're gonna give you a little love because there have been some fantastic Bayou Classic games, and you know what? We're gonna give you some love. My sister actually went to Grambling initially, and then decided, what, Southern was going to be a better fit. So I'm not mad at you, but just don't say nothing bad. Don't say nothing bad about Southern.
I like how you put that. It was going to be a better fit. That was very politically correct. That was very, very nice, Chanda. You're all right. That's all right. Oh, that is so awesome. Good. So it sounds like everybody in the family is playing tennis, and that's just such a wonderful thing. I mean, talk about just the overall support that you got from your parents, just as far as being, in the game of tennis and taking you to tournaments and transitioning into a professional tennis player. How were they with that, given the fact that, your father was a judge and your mother was a teacher? It's like, how did that support come?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, they, took it upon themselves to give us everything. All three of us, myself and my siblings as well, just give us everything they could to allow us to develop and be the best players we could be. Of course, their love of the sport, that sort of got translated to us. And, when it was time to go to tournaments, yeah, we'd all pile into the van. We had this old Ford van where you had the back that would turn into a bed, so on long trips, you could at least sleep and be a little more comfortable. But, we would pile in and it was nothing for us to drive 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, to go to a tournament, to play, particularly during the summer, but sometimes during the year, during, weekend events. So, it was kind of our norm. And I feel fortunate because I understand, certainly in hindsight, how tough and how difficult it can be to, number one, get into the sport, to be able to afford to have a coach and be able to have court time and to travel to these tournaments, events, be able to stay in a hotel, even one night, when you're having to do that to compete. And yet my parents did it. And I never knew that it was an issue, that it was that a big of a problem, or that it was any kind of an issue. It was just what we did. And we never really took vacations, but our vacations were tennis tournaments.
So, right. That is so awesome. And Chanda, talk to us just about your decision-making process. When did you kind of know you were like, yeah, I can do this. I can be a professional tennis player.
it's funny when I think back on sort of the idea of being professional. I really tried not to so much think of it along those lines because that really seemed at the time like a big idea, and
Mhm.
this is when I'm, 12, 13, going into 14 years old. That seems a bit young, but at that age, I'm already starting to consider whether I'm going to play, smaller, challenger events, USTA circuit events, ITF, small ITF events, so I started doing that at 14, but 12 and 13, you're kind of starting to have the ideas put into your head by others. I'm winning national events. I'm playing up, year after year. And so it was just, it seemed like a lot. And for me, it worked just to stay focused, to kind of stay, in sort of my lane and what was important, improving, continuing, to grow in terms of my game, obviously trying to win more titles and just keep progressing and handling the competition at each level. That was instilled in me early on. And so I just kept my focus there. But yeah, I mean, at that age, I was starting to kind of consider, certainly at 13, starting to play some of those smaller events at 14. I'm thinking, okay, how good can I be? Do I belong? I mean, the same questions probably lots of young people have when they are transitioning from one level to the next and they haven't done it before. They haven't beaten and handled the competition at that level. Yeah, I kind of wondered. And for me, I think the one of the delineations I sort of remember was getting into the top 100 in the world. So
Mhm.
after playing, some of the circuit events and, doing well, getting to the finals, winning some of those events, getting my ranking up, I felt like, okay, yeah, now, I feel like I belong. Now, I feel like, this is validated somewhat, even though I always felt like I could get there. It's different once you do it. And so I was able to get to that stage and just keep progressing. And that for me was a key as well.
Awesome. That is awesome. And Chanda, on that road, kind of progression, that progression road that you were on, who were some of the folks that you kind of looked up to or were your inspirations in the sport? I mean, who were you kind of trying to be like and or aspiring to be?
Yeah, I don't think I was trying to be like anyone or really even aspiring to be like a particular player. I didn't, in terms of idols, I didn't have anyone that I really looked up to. There were players that, I sort of, you know, for lack of a better word, were more interesting to me. So Steffi Graf and Yvonne Lindell were two players that, I was like, wow, I like their games. I like how they play aggressive. They've got the forehands, that was like how I saw myself game wise. And so, yeah, I liked, watching those players and I liked kind of, seeing how they were on court, what their demeanors were like. So that was probably the closest in terms of idolizing. But another player, of course, was Zena Garrison, at the time, who, was a player that looked like me, was a player
Right.
that I
Right.
could relate to a little bit more, got, to the finals of Wimbledon, Lori as well, because they grew up playing together and theirs was such an amazing story. And at 15, I actually got the chance to go to Houston and practice with the two of them at McGregor Park, and with John Wilkerson. I mean, it was huge. I remember that
Hmm.
moment. I remember that experience. So, for me, it was more, of that type of connection that became important. And I'm thankful for that experience as well. And to this day, Zena and I are friends. And, I just have so much respect and appreciation for what she was able to do and accomplish. And it sort of helped me in my career.
Well, I tell you what, Chanda, our similarities and the things that we have in common continue to grow because I'm so happy to hear you say that Yvonne Lindell was one of the players that you enjoyed watching because he was my favorite. And I don't come
Oh,
across a lot of
Yep.
people that pick Lindell. They may pick McEnroe or Becker or somebody. I don't hear Lindell a whole lot. So I'm like, okay, Chanda, I can relate to that.
Chanda, you can only imagine how his expression just lighted up when you said
I
Yvonne
can
Lindell.
only imagine. Oh, so we're like two of the weirdos in the world then, right? I love it.
Oh man, that is crazy. So Chanda, just really quickly, talking about your the rivalries and the players that you played during your day, and a lot of things that we try and do here on Brothers on Tennis is we really try and talk about our sisters and brothers out on tour. And I know that towards the end of your tour, kind of as you mentioned, you did get a chance to play both of the Williams sisters. Can you kind of talk to us or give us a little bit of of juice, if you will, on what was your relationship like with Serena and with Venus, kind of as you were playing on the tour? I mean, was what was it cool? Because I remember Zena, when we interviewed her, she would talk about how she would get together and cook food, and all the folk would come together and we'd have a good celebration. Was that the type of relationship you guys had, or was it a little bit more spicy, given given y'all were competing against one another?
It was a good relationship. It probably wasn't quite as involved as the relationship that Zena was able to have with them, because she was done with her career, had the chance to coach them, so a little bit of a difference in terms of mentorship. But I remember when I first met them, I was probably 16, and Venus is about 4 years younger, roughly. Serena's about 5 or so, and so I was still kind of a young player coming up. I hadn't made my breakthrough yet into the top 10. But they were, 11, 12 years old, and literally had not been really playing junior events. Everyone was talking about them, their games. You could see that they were the athleticism, the size, Venus, her height, even at that time, you could see she was going to be tall,
Right.
And you could just, tell that they were going to be great players. Now, how great? I mean, of course, Richard Williams, their father, had this whole thing planned out, and he was crazy like a fox. I mean, everything came true that he said.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest story in tennis. But at the time, you just didn't know. Nobody had really seen them. But I remember meeting them, and we're all shy as kind of young players, but respect. We are a few of the players of color at that point in the game,
Right.
young players. And so there was a connection there, but, we're still really young, and it's not that huge of a deal. I remember later on, sort of when they came out onto the tour, started playing, started making, their moves as professionals. I had made kind of my move and my little breakthrough into the top 10, semifinals at the Australian, whole nine. And I'd had this match at the French Open probably the previous year. Maybe it was a year and a half or so later. But I'd had this comeback against Yana Novotna. And I remember Venus and Serena both coming up to me, and they were just giggling. And I was like, okay, we got to ask you. We have got to ask you. This is true. I mean, we can't believe this is true. Did you actually come back from being down 5-love, 40-love in the third? And they were just looking at me like, I had two heads, and I was like, yeah, I came back. I mean, to me, it wasn't like that big of a deal. I mean, I just fought. I competed. Like, that's what you did. But they thought it was hilarious. And the two of them together, just seeing them, even at that time, you could see the bond, you could see the connection. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have my sister playing tennis with me, going through the same things, having her there. I mean, that's what they had. And it was the most special, incredible thing. But it was one of my first sort of real significant interactions with them. And to this day, we kind of laugh about it sometimes. But, through the years, we've continued to have a good relationship, even though we've competed against each other. I had them come to my hometown to help me with a charity event years ago, and so they both came and did that, and so we've had a good relationship over the years. I still will text or talk to both of them at times, but it's always a little bit of a different dynamic when you've been playing and competing against other players as well. There's sometimes a bit of a limit to how close you can grow with them, but it's certainly, they're two of the players that whenever we see each other, it's like we still kind of go right back to where we were. And it's just, it's a cool thing. And for me, it's fantastic to still have them out playing at the levels that they've been playing at. It's been one of my motivations to stay in the game as a broadcaster. I love it. So yeah, it's been a very, it's just been fantastic.
Well, Chanda, I think, and I want to make sure we don't gloss over it. I think that Novotna match, where, and maybe some of our listeners are not familiar, but in 1995, Chanda was playing Yana Novotna, rest in peace, at the French Open in the third round, and they had split the first two sets. Mm-hmm. And in the third set, Novotna was up serving 5-love, 40-love. Mm. And Chanda came back and won that match. I always feel like you don't get enough credit for that, because are you aware of another match that reached that point in the final set and the person that was down actually came back?
I'm not aware of one. I think there was one match that was maybe close to it, where it might have been like down a set and 5-1 or something like that, or maybe a set and 5-love, maybe not match points. So I'm not aware of one coming from down, someone coming down from that position. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. It is.
Well,
a little bit Chanda, nuts to think about it.
It's, so what's funny to me, Chanda, because I did watch that match. And so I got to make some comments here. Because first of all, you have this beautiful smile. Let's just go and put it out there. You have this beautiful smile. And it seemed like every time I looked at you, it was like you were trying to fight back, smiling I cannot believe this was she trying to let me back up anyway. Right. I mean, it was like you were initially like, look, I'm good. I'm about to take my little bagel, my breadstick. I'm gonna sit on the side, snack away, and be cool. And then next thing you know, it was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. She about to let me back in this thing. And
I don't think you're wrong on that one. I think it's crazy, because I still, there's a lot of matches I don't remember, exactly what happened, point to point. Most of them I don't. And that one, I can't say exactly what happened point to point, but I remember so clearly at that moment, 5-love, 40-love. I remember it clearly. And, you mentioned, Yana Novotna is such a beautiful soul. Her loss was huge for tennis, for the tennis community. So absolutely, I hope she is resting in peace. But that moment, I remember thinking, okay, number one, how did I get here? Okay, I was up a set, feeling good. I was like, ooh, I'm up for a top 5 player. I'm on Steve Chartier, Paris, French Open, like, I'm good, I'm cool. And then it just went downhill so quickly. And so 5-love, 40-love, how did I get here? My next thought was, because I had a good setup in Paris. My mom was there. She had brought food like from home, stuff in her bag. So she was cooking. We had a little apartment. We had it, when you rented, flats, you rented it for the 2 weeks. That's what they required. Hopefully you were there the whole 2 weeks, but that's what you had to do. So we had a flat on the river, the sand, and it was just beautiful. Like I walked to the store, get some tea, get a little, pastry in the morning. I'm like, I like it here. I don't want to leave yet. So at 5-love, 40-love, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to be, changing my flight. I'm gonna have to, pack my bags. I'm literally on the court, going to the back of the court, the 30 seconds in between points, 20 seconds. I'm literally thinking that. I'm gonna call my travel agent. I'm gonna book my flight. I gotta pack my bag. I'm about to go home. And my very next thought was, you know what? I'm gonna stay here a little longer. Got a good situation. I just want to stay here a little bit longer. Let's just stay one more point. I'm on center court. It's nice out here. Stay a little bit longer. And so I just started making balls, and I didn't have that push. I gotta win. Like all of that fell away literally from one point to the next. I just started making balls, getting balls in. I won the first point. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna just stay a little longer, right? Win the next point. And at no time am I thinking I'm gonna win this match. If you would have told me at that moment, I would have said, you're crazy. Go sit down. Like you've been drinking what you've been drinking.
Right, what you've been drinking, sipping on something, right?
Sipping on something, okay? But I just, one point at a time, I literally just didn't want to leave. And I got rid of everything else that couldn't help me, that was negative, the outcome, the winning, the losing, what am I going to do the next point? Like I didn't even think about all that. Just make balls. She serve, return, just make balls and play. She's gonna have to just win the last point. And she couldn't do it. And I started seeing that. So I think that's that little smile that kind of kept fighting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can see it. I've been there as a player. When you get nervous, you get tight, and you just can't make the basic shots you had been making. Her slice kind of left her. She started dumping slices in the net. And of course, with her going down, I was going in the opposite direction because everything for me was just a bonus. And it all started with just staying in the moment and just fighting. And that match, more than any other, really taught me a major lesson. And, you know, because of that, it's one of the matches that really helped propel me and has been, you know, a big influence throughout, you know, the rest of my career.
Well, I'm going to go on record and say, as it relates to Brothers on Tennis, that is the greatest final set comeback in the history of the game. It just is. The
it's the truth. It's ridiculous. It's so inspiring. And like Bryce said, Chanda, I don't think you know just the level of impact that has, because it's so inspiring to see that. And like I said, just the fact that you loosened up, and like I said, every time I looked at you, you had that little smile. You were like, I'm not gonna smile. I'm not gonna show that. I'm gonna try and be respectful, but she let me back up in this, y'all.
Right.
I thought that was so incredible. One of my absolute favorite memories of your career, by far. Oh, so good. So Chanda, overall, we know that you had just an outstanding career, but one of the things that, of course, you had to deal with were injuries, and unfortunately, there were just too many, and I'm just. It's just really sad that it kept coming at you. And I just wanted to kind of allow you to kind of give us a little bit on kind of what you went through in the injuries, and sort of what was your process when you had an injury. What was your thought process as far as getting back out there and rehabilitating? And when did you finally think, hey, I'm good and I'm ready to actually transition out of the sport? Can you kind of take us through that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a junior, first of all, I really didn't have injuries. I mean, hardly any. I mean, I don't remember any major ones. I've never needed surgery, even close to that. I can't even remember ever being out any long period of time because of an injury. I'd have the occasional ankle sprain, I'd take a little time or whatever, But my first big injury was the wrist surgery that I needed. You have little aches and pains. I mean, as a player, something's always sore. But that wrist was like pain, and it came after, the big breakthrough, getting to the top 10. I mean, playing good tennis and just steadily moving up. And, for me, that first injury was just like a shock, really, to the system, more than anything else, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And particularly because it was my right wrist. My forehand was my big weapon. And for me, it was like getting over that. It was figuring out, okay, like, first of all, how am I going to get past the injury part? Because nobody could tell what it was. And I went back and forth. I kept playing with pain. It didn't work. It actually changed my forehand, lost confidence. And so the big part was just that, when you have injuries and you're out for large chunks of time, it affects your confidence.
Right,
It affects how you feel about yourself and your game. And in particular, if it is actually something you started compensating for and it's changed sort of how your fundamentals are structured, that's even worse. And so for me, that first injury, it was huge from that standpoint. I didn't really have the experience, to deal with it, how to get back. And it took me a lot longer. I had some initial good results, but just it started to take a toll. And you also, I think one thing people don't realize as well, that they don't maybe think about as much, are the things players go through off court, especially as they're growing up, as they are, becoming adults. They're trying to figure themselves out, as well as, play this game at a high level and improve in that. And so a lot of that for me was happening at the same time. Just trying to take more control, trying to figure out myself as a person. And then you got, injuries, and it's affecting your game and your strengths and such. So that period was tough. I have had some injuries since then, once I was able to get back. And for me, the mindset is when you come back, you've got to start with the basics.
Right.
First of all, are you healthy? Are you close to pain free? A lot of times you're not totally pain free, but you kind of have to still work through some kinks, and it's improving as you go, from what doctors will tell you. And so, it's more of starting with the basics, trying to understand how you need to develop points, because when you first come back from injury, that's kind of what you lose. You haven't been playing.
Right.
You don't have, the instinctiveness that's there when you have months and years of matches behind you in a row. And so, getting back to that, how do you want to develop this point? What are you trying to do from the start, from your serve, from the return? And I think with the injuries, I actually learned those more important, sort of aspects of the game. I really had to understand the game more. And I couldn't just use my power. I couldn't just use my ability. I really had to understand those key factors. And so in some ways it helped, as much as it was something you don't want to have to go through.
Wow. Well, even with the injuries, I mean, there's no question you had a stellar career as a player. But one of the things that we really respect and we think is equally as impressive is how you have just transitioned into this broadcasting career. And, can you just talk to us a little bit about, was this something that was always like a goal for you, or did you get presented with an opportunity and you just kind of took advantage of it? How did this all come about?
Well, it's funny. We just kind of talked about the injury, and certainly, things kind of flowed from me being injured towards the end of my career. So I couldn't get back. My third knee surgery, I just could not get healthy again. And I probably tried for about 3 years, combination of, two surgeries during that period of time, rehabbing, trying to get back, playing with pain, not able to. And by the kind of end of that third year, end of 2007, I was just really frustrated, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And that was probably the toughest period, for me, because I'd had a knee surgery beginning of 2001, beginning of 2002, got back for about a year and a half. Then I needed another knee surgery after the US Open in 2004, had an ankle surgery in 2005. And again, just could not get healthy. I'm trying to train, and it's was one of the most frustrating periods for me. And so at the end of 2007, I can't do it anymore. It felt like quitting in a way, but in my heart, I knew I'd tried everything, and it just was not going to work. And so I didn't even announce my retirement. I just, told my coach. It was tough conversation. And my family, of course, knew, but did not announce it, didn't do the whole, tour, kind of finished my career. Like, I just didn't say anything to anyone. And in 2008, I got offered an opportunity to commentate at the Indian Wells and then the Miami event. And, those were kind of the first real opportunities. I had done a bit of commentating in 2007 for Tennis Channel at the French Open, but I was still trying to play. So I was still thinking, I was going to come back, but, I'm not playing this tournament that year. And so I said, I'd do the 2 weeks. This was the first commentating I did knowing that I was done playing. And so I feel like that was kind of the start. But it still wasn't a clear idea that I want to be a commentator. It was just an opportunity. Yeah, I've been playing the sport for so long. I have a knowledge base, why not? And I did enjoy it, but I still just wasn't quite sure. And during that time, I felt like I needed to kind of do different things. As a tennis player, you're so focused on one thing, very singular minded, not really, doing a lot of extracurricular things the way normal kids would do, the way normal young people would do. And so I felt like it was an opportunity for me to kind of do that and figure out what I wanted to do. And I decided I'd go back and I'd get my real estate license. I had already started investing in commercial property while I was playing, but I didn't feel I knew enough about it to really handle the business myself. And so I wanted to understand better. So got my real estate license. I'm a licensed realtor, even to this
Right.
day.
All right.
And then during that period, I also decided I would go back to school and get my undergraduate degree. So I went to Harvard for that. So, for 3 or 4 years, I was kind of focused on, school, on building, sort of my real estate knowledge and the business I already kind of had, and then also kind of moonlighting as a commentator. So it was just it was a weird kind of existence, but that was where I was, and it kind of worked. And I was literally, because I had an office building, large office building with 23 tenants. I was the leasing agent. Plus I was there on site every day. I had my office there. It was like a full service building. So I literally would be in the office every day doing the realtor and commercial property thing. And then I'd here and there go off for weeks at a time to commentate. And so I think for me, it was important because it helped me to kind of grow a bit more and then understand exactly what I wanted to do. And it's also it allowed me to hone my craft a little bit as a commentator, because I didn't get opportunities thrown at me. You literally had to, build with relationships, a little bit of networking. I didn't have an agent anymore, because I had just kind of faded out of this sport. So nobody was really trying to, pump me up, but it was about, the work I did, the people I worked with, and then there would be other opportunities that came from that. So I feel like, it was kind of a blessing because I earned it. I had to earn it. And, I had to actually, get better and kind of pay my dues. And so I think it's made me a better commentator, and, it continues to kind of motivate me today.
I tell you what, your story is such a lesson for other athletes. Absolutely. Because we've all seen the stories of where athletes, after their playing days are done, they're kind of lost because that's all they've done their entire life, and they don't really have that next thing to go to. And what I really love hearing you say is that you took time to invest in yourself.
Yep.
And beyond being, you were no longer defined as just being a professional tennis player, but you really built your skill set, and it makes your transition to broadcasting, to me, even more impressive.
Yeah, and like you said, Bryce, she put in work, and that also is what is so incredible. She's like, it wasn't like it was handed to me. She put in work. She went back to school. She got that education. Chanda, I love this story. Love your story.
And so,
thank you.
And something I want to add on to that, I mean, just like you were as a player, you were one of very few African Americans that were out there on tour. It's the same thing for you in the broadcasting booth. And before you even answer this about your experience as an African American in broadcasting, Isaac and I have talked about this for years. The way that you conduct yourself, well, really it started the way that you conducted yourself on
court. Absolutely.
Just very professionally, not a lot of madness and craziness out there on the court. You make us so proud on the Tennis Channel because, and I don't know how many episodes of our show you've listened to, we have said many times, you are our favorite commentator on the Tennis Channel.
Thank you.
We are just so proud of the job that you do there. So tell us about being one of the few minorities in the broadcasting booth.
I don't think about that as much, but it's there, right? I mean, absolutely. I know it's there front and center, but kind of like how I thought of things as a player, you just focus on yourself, for me, focus on what I need to do, how I need to grow. There are times where I have felt like, okay, I've got to be better than this person who doesn't have the resume I have and is getting opportunities. And I'm going to tournaments and I'm literally building the relationship, paying my own way, getting just enough per day to kind of make it make sense for dinner, and I did that time and time again. And, on one hand, you can kind of be bitter, you can kind of be a little bit angry and frustrated. But I always tried to look at that as a positive. I always tried to kind of turn it around and say, you know what, this is what I have to do right now. It's what it is. You can't change it. So
Yep.
get to work.
Right.
Do what you got to do.
That's
Right?
right.
Make an opportunity from it, because one thing is certain. I'm not going to get the job and then say I didn't do a good job or I don't deserve the job next time, because I'm gonna make sure they're gonna say both of those things. And so that was like kind of my motivation. So, once I had an opportunity, it was just, I'm gonna get another one from it, and I'm gonna get another one. And sometimes it would be people I work with who would say, you know what, there's another thing over here. I would have never even known about it. Because as I said, I didn't have an agent, working to get me deals, just letting me know about opportunities that were coming up. I mean, literally, I'm having to kind of find out about it from the people I'm around. And so oftentimes it would be somebody I work with who would say, you'd be great in this opportunity. And, oh, you'd be really good here. I'm going to tell them about you and they'll maybe give you a call. And for me, that was the best feeling, because you don't have to give me anything because you trying to make me feel good about it. Give me the opportunity I earned that I deserve, and I'm cool with that. And so that was just always my mentality. And I guess it's that 5 love, 40 love down the I'm not going to quit.
I love it.
I mean, you can say and do whatever, but I'm not going to quit. So give me a challenge and I like it even better. Piss me off just a little bit, I'm good with that, because I'm a really nice, easygoing person. Just give me a little fire. Right. And I'm gonna let it burn. So
I love it.
Always my mentality. And I think it certainly helped me during, this period of time, because there was no script for it, and you kind of mentioned it. When you retire from tennis, nobody's helping you figure out how to make that transition. You have the people around you, but they don't really understand either. How do you go from playing a sport at that level, to then working at a job, and how do you go about it? What job should that be? And so I think for me, it just helped kind of having to fight a little, having to push a little bit outside of where I might have been comfortable before. That I think has been a benefit.
Absolutely. And Chanda, we call that good favor around here.
That's
blessing. That's blessings. I mean, that's just God at work. It's like when you put in the work, God will work. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna tell.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you something else, because so during this period, I mean, you mentioned God at work. He is absolutely, and I don't, I'm not a person to be talking and shouting from the rooftops, but I believe it, I know it, and I've seen it. And it's funny, at one point, it was some rough times, and at one point, I'm just trying to kind of figure out, okay, my next steps. I'm here in Louisiana. Nobody's coming to Louisiana to give opportunities, to a tennis player that was lucky to get out of here. and so I'm just trying to keep pushing and figuring things out. I had built a house, okay, was that a good move? Nice house, and then in the midst of all that, my house burns.
I remember hearing about that.
Hits my house, and it's a total loss because it burns for like 3 hours. And, it was just so crazy, because I had people after that coming up and saying, I'm so sorry. It's so terrible. Are you okay? And, I had to just tell them the truth. Like, you know what? I'm fine. I said, the biggest thing I'm happy about, nobody was hurt. Nobody, in my home, it was just me at the time. Nobody else in their homes got hurt, because this was, could have happened. These houses, some of these roofs were very close together. Very nice neighborhood, but like, small lot lines like they do in some of these areas. And, I said, I'm just thankful no one else got hurt. And you know what? It's just stuff. You can replace it. You can rebuild it.
That's right.
And it's so funny, because from that moment on, it's like things have kind of taken off in a positive direction in terms of what I needed at the time. And so I say that it was absolutely God at work. I met my husband through some of that, married, we got, family, the whole, and like, it's just, when I think about the last 10 years and some of the tough spots in the early part of it and where I am now, I mean, I can't help but be blessed. And even through all of what we're going through now, I remember and think about that.
Such an inspirational story.
And
this is one of the reasons why we do this show.
That's right.
Because you don't get to hear
You don't get to hear this.
Right?
Folk don't hear this.
Yeah.
Our folk they need to hear these types of stories and be inspired. Put that work in.
Absolutely.
Put that work in.
And speaking of your work, I just want to real quickly ask you about being a tennis analyst on the Tennis Channel. You know, what is it about that you like? Maybe what are some of the things that you don't like
right.
about it?
You know, I mean, the people. One of the things that I love are the people, and you know, certainly, you know, people sort of take you as you are. Maybe how they react to you is what you give off, and some of that I'm certain is a factor. But it's just a really good group of people, and you know, I've worked with Tennis Channel for a lot of years, but just on the fringes, you know, doing the occasional stuff here and there. Over the last 3 years, I've been, you know, front and center more, and I've just become more and more a part of their everyday coverage, their major coverage. And, you know, that too has been a blessing. It's allowed me to get consistent reps, because that's what I was always kind of wanting when I was doing, you know, a tournament here or there. You know, I'd commentate tournament for a week or two, then I wouldn't work for 3 months. And getting the reps helps. You know, that helps you kind of hone your skill, your craft, right. and also your voice, and just staying immersed in it. And so that was what I wanted. It wasn't about the money, wasn't about being on TV. I just wanted more opportunities. And so they've given me that, and they've allowed me to really grow and to really shine. And it's just kind of come together at the right times. But I'd say the is what I love the most about the group. And it's a good environment. I've worked with some other networks, and you know, it's not always a great environment. Right. And you know, sometimes you feel like you gotta cut the next person to get what you need. And that I don't feel that. I don't have to cut somebody every day. Okay, so that is what I love. What I don't love is probably what I just told you. Is that, you know, that environment where it's just, you know, that this person, you doing well and they hating on you because you've got an extra shift, an extra opportunity. Like that I just can't get with. But at Tennis Channel, it's just not the case, and it's been fantastic.
Oh, that is great.
That's awesome.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put some of your tennis analyst skills to the test now.
All right.
Now, something that our listeners are very familiar with is we like to do something what we call rapid fire. Mm-hmm. And for you, what we want to do today is we're going to give you 6 names, and we'll give them to you one at a time. And we'd like for you just to, whatever comes to your mind about this player, it can be about their game, it can be about their person, it can be about their reputation. Anything that comes to your mind, feel free to speak. So I will go with the first person, and I'd like to hear what you think about Madison Keys.
A power. Big tennis. She is the ball as hard as anyone. And I mean, I consider myself a big hitter. You know, that's my nickname. But right. Madison Keys, that is a big hitter. And I've always respected players like that. And I believe she has still so much potential. And she's one of those players, if she can rein it in just enough at the critical moments, you know, she's going to hold up the big trophy.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Chanda. Listeners know I have been writing Madison Keys for a while now, because if I ever meet Madison, she's probably going to slap me. But I agree with you. She has a God-given physical ability that is insane. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, something's not going on upstairs, you know, that in these crucial moments in these matches, I'm not sure why she's not able to get the job done on the biggest stages.
Well, and me and Bryce have talked about this before, and I really feel like when Lindsay was in her corner and coaching her, I felt like that's when we really saw a lot of the good combination of the mental as well as the physical capability for Madison Keys. And I'm a huge fan of hers, Chanda. So I'm like you. I'm just waiting for it to happen.
keep waiting.
Yeah, you know, listen, I mean, that's the tough part about any player. You just don't know, especially when they haven't done it. And, you get to where you have such a big game, it can be difficult to understand how to, rein it in at the right moments. And that will always be a challenge for her. I hope, that she can get it. But yeah, it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take tremendous discipline. And Lindsay, I think, has been great for her. And, they're still great friends. And, she at any point has Lindsay as a mentor. So hopefully that can kind of help push her even further.
Good. And we do love Lindsay on this show as well, by the
way. Yes.
All right. So the next person we have for the rapid fire for you is Miss Sloane Stephens.
Talent. I mean, she has like every shot. She can play, she can play offense, she can play defense. And sometimes that's the toughest. To consistently manage, to know what to do in different situations. And even, from the aspect of just working consistently, I think that's where her challenge is, because, she does have so much ability. That run with her winning the US Open a couple of years ago, I mean, that was incredible. And even with her game, I don't think anybody would have said they saw that coming at that moment. With what she had been through, having been injured and, on crutches in a wheelchair just 6 months before. I mean, it was incredible. But you saw it there. I mean, that match against Venus in the semifinals, I still think about a couple of those backhands, like how in the world did she come up with the goods? Venus was playing great tennis on her side. So for me, Sloane Stephens, I mean, she has such an incredible game. And I just hope that at some point she can become more of a consistent player at that level, because she has the game.
Yep.
Okay.
Agree completely.
All right. The next one for me is Miss Taylor Townsend.
I mean, just hands. That girl, hands. And I love Taylor. I had a chance to spend some time with her. And Zena, on one of the islands, we did a little event. We, spent some time with kids there, and, she was just a delight. She's certainly grown since then. She's become, more of a young woman, and you see her game. I mean, she has, the hands, the natural ability and athleticism. Who can, serve and volley the way she did against Simona Halep in that match. And that's her game. Like, that was no fluke. It just came together, at the right moment, in the right way, combined with her belief in herself. And I think that for Taylor, that is the continuing challenge, that if she can continue to believe in herself, believe in her game. But we all know, developing an attacking style, an attacking game, mixing and serving and volleying, that takes longer. And so I think, so many people have written her off, but I don't think the story is by far anywhere near over. And I would love to see her really become more of a factor.
Same here, because we were at that match at the US Open and was blown away. And actually, a couple of months ago, we were at the Challenger in Newport Beach before Indian Wells, and we were watching her matches there. And it was very frustrating because she was playing those matches from the baseline.
We were like, where's our US Open?
Yeah, where's that person we saw at the US Open who was in the net 100 times in a match? So we hope that confidence comes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Next one for you, Miss Chanda. Frances Tiafoe.
That's an athlete. I mean, just a natural athlete. So fast. This is another player who, has so many shots. And, for me, spend a little time around him. For me, he doesn't even fully know how to play the game yet. And yet he has gotten to the level he's gotten to. He's beaten players that he's, been able to beat. You look at the top guys, and I mean, he plays them close. You pretty much know he's going to bring it, particularly when it's a big match at hand. And that's what you like to see in a young player. And, he'll lose a tight match in the third set, tight match in the fifth against Federer, against Medvedev, against, all these, top guys. And I just hope, I mean, I would love to see him continue to put it together, continue, to understand how to play from his strengths. because he's the type of player who can play defensive tennis and who can also play offensively and can go between the two. Some of us, we just got to pretty much play our game, one way, or we're going to get killed and smoked. But he's the type of player similar to Sloane Stevens. They can decide, okay, I'm going to just get a lot of balls right now. I'm going to just stay on the point. Or, okay, I'm going to step up and I'm going to, hit some big shots and I'm going to dictate and control it. And for Francis, he can also play at the net. He's got good hands.
Oh, yeah.
But again, I would love to see him just understand how to play his game more and more in the big situations, play it more consistently against the top guys. That's the only way you beat the top players. You beat number ones. You beat top 10 players consistently. If you come and you don't have it all together, they're going to exploit that. And I think that's where Francis is. And so he's another player that I hope can kind of put it all together consistently.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that answer. Well, this is the question that the world is asking. What about Miss Coco Gauff?
Impressive. I mean, she's rock solid in so many ways that you would not expect someone of her age to be just yet.
Mm-hmm.
She seems to, just understand the right things, the things that she needs to be focusing on, the right things to say. And I love her game, but it's her ability to compete, her hardness, that look that she gets when she's kind of down and the moment could overtake her, as it has so many players who don't have the experience yet. And she just keeps rising above it. Like, for me, that's the most impressive thing about Coco Gauff, the mental side of it and how she seems to just, get harder the tougher the situation is. And that's a great sign. I think she can only grow with her game. We kind of heard her talk about, some of the challenges that, she's had just mentally and emotionally. And that's normal. At 15, 16, being under the microscope the way she's been, you would be surprised if she hasn't had, any of those, tough moments,
exactly.
Mentally. So, I just hope she can continue to grow as well and continue to, just let her game evolve and not start to feel that pressure, not start to feel that weight on her. And if that's the case, and we're going to see her as an exciting player for some years to come.
Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree. And Chanda, our last one for you, Zina Garrison.
Zina Garrison. That is the mother.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's hard for me to come up with any other word for Zina. I remember. So I mentioned practicing with her at McGregor Park when I was 15. She and Lori. Going through some reps, hitting, and she, just competitive. She was just hard as nails, Zina, and you could see it in the way she worked. She and Lori had such different personalities, but, similar in terms of how dynamic their games were, but just in different ways. But it was Zina, it was that hardness. I just saw it from the start. And, I tell this story, we afterwards ran the Bayou. And I'm from Louisiana. It's hot, like Texas. No big deal. We got bayous, no problem. But that was a whole different experience running that bayou. And we run like a good jog, but like she was running it like competitive with everything, and that taught me so much. Just having that experience with a player who was a professional, at the level where I was trying to get to see how hard she worked, to see how committed and dedicated, she was, and how she just honed that competitiveness. That certainly was an influence for me.
And we totally agree with your assessment of calling her mother, because she has become like our tennis godmother. She's so embraced us. And she told us one time, like, you can call me anytime. It's never a bother. And we probably are testing that.
Right?
Is it true?
Exactly. So those were a few people that we were interested in. You being, an up-to-speed analyst, who, for our listeners, who are some of the players out there right now that we should maybe keep our eyes on that you think their future is particularly bright?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've, been watching, Naomi Osaka, her step up and win a couple of majors, during the last, few years. Bianca Andreescu, I mean, she's a
Mhm.
fantastic player. I mean, the secret is out. She's a U.S. Open champion, but it was really just this past year that she just burst onto the scene. And she's dealt with some injuries and some setbacks, but every time she steps out onto the court, it's like her level is just there. I mean, she got what took me years to get, and she just has it. So she's going to be an exciting, player to watch going forward if she can stay healthy. And this little break may help her. We talked about Coco Gauff, who I think is just going to be so much fun, to watch as she progresses, and especially with how young she is. And Katie McNally, who is her doubles partner. I really enjoy, her game. And I think she has that type of game that's just different. She doesn't just sit back and play from the baseline. So that could be, a real interesting mix kind of thrown into the game, where we see a lot of players, playing one-dimensional tennis. So she's going to be, I think, an exciting young player to watch. And, it'll be interesting to see how, for me, sort of how some of the more established players, react to the new crop of players coming up, and even someone who's not so established, but still kind of think of her a little more of a veteran compared to those younger names. But Ash Barty, who I love her game. I love kind of her mentality, how grounded she seems to be. She made some tough decisions early on that have seemed to pay off in terms of walking away from the sport when she knew she needed to. And I love to see those kinds of, that kind of poise and that type of awareness from some of these younger players. So it'll be fun to kind of watch how that develops along with their games.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are definitely a big fan of Ash Barty. Where the party at? What?
Yeah.
Come on now.
The Barty part. I can't even say the Barty party.
The Barty
Yeah,
party.
there
There
you
you go.
Yeah, with the accent.
Exactly. So Chanda, tell us just if you were the commissioner, because we got a whole bunch of stuff going on. You got the ITF, and you've got the women's tour and the men's tour, and everybody was initially kind of doing their own thing, and now they're finally coming together. If you were the commissioner, the person able to make the choice about tennis, what would be some of the things that you in particular would implement for our great sport?
I mean, it seems like such a foreign idea that we could actually have that over tennis, because for so long we've had all these different, bodies, governing bodies, decision-making bodies. But, we're talking now about trying to bring the two tours together. I think, obviously if you have a commissioner, you would imagine that they have been brought together, I guess. But that is what I would love to see. We've been having some of those discussions, and that's going to be a tough task. How do you kind of mesh the two tours? How do you bring into alignment, the different levels of tournaments, the different system in terms of tournaments and prize money and, support that's offered, locations of events, prize money levels. I mean, there's so much that has to be discussed, even, from a pension standpoint. And so I think if we can get that in line, I don't know how we quite do that. I mean, if I did, I probably should be commissioner. I would love to see, that happen. I would love to see just more support of each other between, the men's and women's tours, because, we say this as sort of a cliche, but tennis is so special because the men and women play on the same stages. Those are our biggest tournaments. Those are the crown jewels of our sport. And it just creates a whole different level of excitement. Whether you like men's tennis more, whether you like women's tennis more, it's better when you get both. And I don't know anybody who can't appreciate having both. And you think also about the stars of our sport, how cyclical it can be, the ebbs and flows. You've got, stars now, but then you've got a younger crop coming up, and maybe when the men's side doesn't quite have those names, or maybe those names are transitioning out, the women's side kind of picks up the slack. That's how tennis has been, I think, over the decades.
That's
Mhm.
right.
And so
That's right.
why not use those assets, together, to make this sport sort of, pandemic proof almost, for lack of a better word. I mean,
I love
you're
it.
talking about against all these other sports that, are driving at times so much more television money. Tennis could be right there because of the specialness, and the assets that exist. So I would just love to see more of that, and I think it's starting to happen. Hopefully, that can continue.
Absolutely. You absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly, Chanda. It's really just hopefully seeing that continued evolution of the sport and things coming together versus moving apart. And I really feel like this pandemic is going to drive a lot of that in a lot of different areas. I think it's going to give people the ability to really think about things differently and hopefully make the right improvements on it. And
Mhm.
so, Chanda, overall, and I know we've been talking to you about a ton of stuff.
Right.
We want to kind of know what's going on with you right now. We know you got the little baby and you're working on the tennis channel. What are some of the other things going on in the life of Chanda Rubin?
Well, yeah, on the personal side, as you mentioned, in the family, I have a 3-year-old. I also have, stepkids. So I'm doing the homeschool thing, and we're hitting it hard on a daily basis. We got the routine going. I'm cooking.
Nice.
I
There you
mean, I
go.
don't even recognize myself sometimes. I'm like, what? Who is this person? I mean, meal planning? Are you serious?
Love
But
it.
I've adapted and settled in, and I'm enjoying it, and certainly appreciative of this moment in time because it goes so fast, and that's one thing I'm really seeing as I get older, how quickly those moments just zip by. So just trying to take advantage, and I think that's been one of the positives during this period of time. As much as we're trying to get out of it, and hopefully people can come out of it as safely as possible. But it's maybe appreciating the ability to slow down and just spend more time with those around us, and with the people we love and care about. So I'm trying to look at it from that standpoint. I'm also started a show, a live show with Zena Garrison. We talked a lot about Zena, and we have continued to be friends, and we'll pick up the phone and we'll just chat about stuff. And we'll be watching a match, and we'll be doing like our sideline commentating, talking about what's going on, and just things that we think about. And so we said, why don't during this time, why don't we start a show? Why don't we kind of do something like that? Just really easy, really relaxed. We get different guests on to talk about tennis and other things, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm enjoying that, and of course, it's kind of alongside my day job with the tennis channel. We're getting some remote work in. So at home, I'm here in my office, on camera, trying to, as Zena says, get my set right.
Yes,
And
yes.
kind of keep going. So it's been different, but it's been fun, and I actually enjoy those weeks. So those are my busiest weeks where I have tennis channel, 5 days of the live show, 3-hour show that I do with them, and then Zena and I will have our show, our chat game set chat show one of the days at the end of that week. Plus, I have the girls, and we're doing the homeschool, and those are kind of my favorite weeks because they're crazy and they're busy, and I literally don't have time to think. I just go on routine, and it's been a lot of fun, and I did not expect this, but I'm going with it.
Hey.
Your schedule definitely sounds very full, and it just makes us even more appreciative that you took time today
Man.
to have this session with us because Isaac and I are looking at each other right now, and we're just like,
What? Come on, man. We got Chanda on the line.
Exactly.
Come on.
And for our listeners, we met Chanda a couple times before. I first met her in an airport in Houston, and then we saw her at the Australian Open that following year. And I tell you what, as nice as she appears on television, she is equally as nice in person. Just a very gracious person, and we're so very appreciative of the time you spent with us today. So thank you, Chanda,
Yes.
for being with us. I want to
Very welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Great. I want to reiterate to our listeners if you have not joined their Facebook group called Game Set Chat, it is on Facebook. It is a live show. I think they've had about 4 so far. I think I've been on every one of them so far. Chanda, thank you for always giving us love on the questions.
I know, right? Thank you for that, Chanda.
I love seeing you guys come on. I'm like, hey, our friends are on. Got another good question coming. So yeah, it's been a blast.
Good. And then of course we can't forget about the tennis channel. Please continue to support the tennis channel and watch our girl Chanda do her thing. So with that, we're going to sign off. I want to acknowledge our producer, CJ. We don't shout him out enough, but he's always the mastermind behind everything. We want to try to get him on the mic one day. He just always refuses, but we do want to get him.
Right?
Yeah.
Hiding. He's like cutting himself off.
Exactly. So shout out to you, CJ. And next week, listeners, we're going to do something we've never done before. One of our listeners gave us a recommendation to do a show on Monfils and Sangha.
That's right.
So we're going to do that next week, and we're very excited about that. So we'll look out online for when we're going to drop that episode. So with that, we'll sign off. This is your boy Bryce.
And this is your boy Isaac.
And we are Brothers on Tennis. Be safe, everyone.